Our final speaker tonight is Dan Seewald, founder and CEO of Deliberate Innovation. Dan started his career in public accounting as a CPA, a world that I know there's some CPAs in here in the audience. A world that largely follows established protocols, where he says he appreciated the finiteness of debits and credits. It's crunch time for you guys, I know. But he also found it a bit stifling to his creative side and felt pulled into a different world of innovation. Dan was the former head of Pfizer's Worldwide Innovation Group, where he architected and led the Dare to Try program, one of the company's leading corporate innovation programs. He's also been responsible for leading a $1 billion-plus global marketing portfolio in smoking cessation and neuroscience. Today, Dan's a professional facilitator, moderator, and a featured TED Talk keynote speaker. His company, Deliberate Innovation, transforms the traditional innovation workshop by blending behavioral science with design thinking. And as somebody who's participated in a few of those workshops, a lot of fun. Let's welcome our last speaker, Dan Seewald.
Thanks, Garrett. All right. Thank you, Garrett. So flattering. I wrote it, by the way. First of all, there is a theme that goes beyond grit and gumption here, and it's innovation. Okay, patience and innovation. This might be a lot longer name for next year, but innovation runs throughout. For the better part of the past couple of decades, I've worked in this space of applied creativity and innovation. And through that time, I had this big discovery, and I'm gonna reveal my secret right here with you tonight. You ready? Innovation is hard. It's really, I know it's not a black hole, but it's hard. Innovation is really, really hard. And you know what? Inside of large traditional institutions, organizations, corporations, it's even harder. Now, a couple months ago, I endeavored to try to dig in a little bit deeper. And I spoke to over 250 corporate leaders in healthcare life science companies. And I asked them, why is innovation so hard? We need breakthroughs, whether it's in oncology, neuroscience, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Huntington's. We need bigger, greater, bolder breakthroughs. So I asked them, and this group came together, and in no particular order, these are some of the things they said that get in the way. We don't have the right people. We don't have the right leaders. None of them, by the way, told their CEOs that. We don't have the right leaders. We don't have enough funding. Nobody ever has enough funding, but we don't have enough funding. We don't have enough time. My favorite, though, we don't even know what innovation really is. Nobody's got an agreed upon definition. They struggled with these, and in particular, you may have heard this where you work. You may say this yourself. All these are valid explanations of why innovation's hard. But there's one that didn't get recited, which for me is maybe the cardinal issue. And if we were to look in the mirror, we'd probably see the answer staring back at ourselves. The biggest issue for me is us. It's up here. It's our mindset. We've heard that from a couple other people tonight. It's about the space in between here, the choices we make. Are we inhabiting an innovator's mindset, or are we taking more of what I call a knower's mindset, a more fixed mindset, where tradition, routine, practice, and protocol rule the roost? I believe that is the biggest issue. But I'm gonna share a quick story to be able to bring a little bit more to life. And it's a personal story because, quite frankly, none of us are above it. All of us can be at fault from times, but there's things we can gather from it. So to do that, I'm gonna take us to another city, one that may be less popular here, called New York City, back to 2011. And back in 2011, on this wintry day, I worked at a company called Pfizer. And my daughter, who in 2011 was 6 years old. So my 6-year-old daughter, Abby, said, "Dad, I want to see where you work, and I want to see what you do." And I said, "That's great." And I wanted to explain to her, I sit at a desk and I type at a computer, but that probably wouldn't be so exciting for her. So I told her, absolutely, come with me to the office. So we made the peregrination from New Jersey on the New Jersey PATH train all the way across to Midtown Manhattan. And my daughter came along with me. And at the time, I was working on a product called Chantix, amongst other things. You might have heard of it. It's a smoking cessation product. And it was kind of a double-edged sword. The product had a lot of room for possibility. And I was in charge globally of this product, and amongst things I was responsible for was coming up with new innovations, new formulations, new applications, thinking about how else we might be able to use this product. Well, on that day, I thought it was going to be a quiet Friday, but this was, before COVID, so people did come to the office back then. I go to the office, and I kind of had a busy day. So I said to my daughter, you know what, I'm going to have you hang out in my office for just a little bit, but I'm going to give you a challenge. You see this guy here? I want you to come up with an idea that gets him to stop smoking. Can you do it? And she immediately blew up with elation. She was so excited. Absolutely. She started grabbing Post-it notes and dry erase markers, anything that she could grab, staplers, tape. I'm not sure what she did with it, but she grabbed all the supplies she could find, and she went to work like nobody's business with the arts and crafts of Pfizer's Midtown office. So I slunk out for 35, 45, I don't know, a lot of time passed, but my wife's not here, so that's not really important here. But as I returned to my office with my daughter safely there, my office had exploded with all these art supplies. But she said to me, Dad, I have the best idea. I've got the greatest idea. And she couldn't contain her enthusiasm. I said, okay, well, tell me your idea, sweetie. And admittedly, I was a little distracted from previous meetings. I had stuff going through my mind. It was a big project I had to get through. But I said to her, yeah, tell me your idea. And she revealed this to me. This was the original Post-it note. A drink, no, a tasty drink, not just a tasty drink to make the people stop doing cigarettes. This is the real Post-it note from my daughter back then. Now, when she revealed this to me with a big ear-to-ear grin, I said to her, as a good parent does to their 6-year-old, right, Garrett? I said to her, that's a great idea, sweetheart, as I nodded. And in my head, I was saying, that's the worst goddamn idea I've ever heard. That's terrible. The pharmacokinetics will never work. The FDA will never approve this, trust me. My legal and regulatory team will be swarming around me like a hive. And what's the customer insight? Did she think about that? All right, she is 6 years old. But I kind of relished in absolutely annihilating the 6-year-old's idea. What a stupid idea. What are you thinking? But I didn't say that. I really didn't say that. So I went about the day, and she went with me. And, fast forward a little bit into the evening, and we returned to my car in the parking lot in the New Jersey PATH station. And as I started to get to the car and open up the door, and I kind of eased her into her car seat, it crossed my mind to ask the question, hey, Abby, where'd you get the idea of a drink from? And she turned to me and she said, well, I noticed something. When we were walking to your office, I noticed that there were people puffing on cigarettes the way people sip on drinks. So what if you could get people to sip on a drink like a medicine to get them to switch the habit or of doing this, of puffing on a cigarette? And I actually dropped her. I think I dropped her because I was so stunned. That was a real human-centered insight. It was a real observation. And I was stunned. This actually was a viable idea. This was a real human insight. I couldn't get over it. And in that moment, a few other thoughts rushed through my mind. The first one was this. I didn't even give her idea a chance. I killed her idea like a natural-born idea killer. I went out there and I relished in it. The truth is, I was an expert in this space. I've been working in neuroscience and smoking cessation for multiple years now. I knew everything you needed to know. I was an expert, at least I thought I was. And you know, I figured no 6-year-old could possibly come up with an idea that I hadn't seen before. And quite frankly, I didn't even give it a chance. I didn't defer any judgment. I didn't pause and think about it. I just went up right away and axed the idea. And I did it to other people too. Second thing is, I walked every day, virtually every day, from that train stop, the subway stop, to my office in Midtown. And I passed the same smokers, the same people sipping on coffee outside, and I never, even for a moment, saw what she saw. I never considered it. I wasn't curious. I didn't ask the questions. And even if I saw the exact same people doing the same things, I never had the same perception or observation. Which leads me to this last point. I always figured innovation up at that time was all about processes and techniques, design thinking, creative problem solving, lean, Lego serious play. It's about frameworks and techniques and process and order and methodology. But what I realized in that moment and every day since is innovation is really about this. It's seeing what everyone else is seeing, yet thinking what no one else has thought before. Information is widely available, more so than ever before. There is an arms race of information. It's no longer about information, the availability of it. We have the same research reports, the same data for the most part. It's what we do with it up here. That's the competitive advantage. That's the differentiator. When we have the ability to see what someone else is seeing, yet think something entirely different, that's what creates real and sustainable innovation. And I didn't realize it then. I've realized it now. So, P.S., what actually happened? I gotta tell the end of it, of course, right? So the idea, which was the idea of a 6-year-old, became a real product that we developed. When I introduced it to my formulators, they laughed, and one person said, yeah, actually, you could do that. And for the better part of the year, we developed it, we did research on it, we talked to consumers, and they loved the idea. It didn't make it to market, but the product actually did get developed, and it worked. And everything I said wouldn't work, everything that I immediately judged in my head was wrong. My 6-year-old was right. She could have put me out of a job. She very well could have put me out of a job. So what's this all mean for us? What do we take away from this? I never like to walk away without saying, here are some things that we can do. So there are a few things I want to just kind of reinforce I think are really, really important here. Number one is this. Innovation is not just about tools and techniques or processes and frameworks. It's about mindset. But even more than that, it's about habit. It's about building habits and reinforcing them over and over. When you build the habits, like building muscles, right? If you keep working them, they grow. If you leave them alone, they atrophy over time. It's the same thing with innovation. It's an act, it's a habit, it's a mindset. And there are 3 little habits that I didn't do before, but I do now. And I practice them. And we do these in trainings and workshops because they're so important. And people giggle when we tell them this, but then they realize they really do work. Even for the smartest scientists, researchers, marketers, they work. So the first one I'm going to give you is this. Positives first. Sounds cliche, something you tell a classroom full of 6th graders, but it's true. First thing is find a positive. Someone gives you an idea, you start with, one thing I like about this is this. Most of the time, we tell people, here's why it won't work. Somebody comes to you and says, I have a new idea. What do you say? All right, I'll give you my feedback. And immediately it's critiquing and judging. Why? We're trained like that. It's instinctive. It's visceral. We respond the same way I did. I actually pause now, and I ask people to pause, find 3 things that you like about that idea. What does it do? It actually repositions us cognitively. We think differently. We frame it different in our mind now. Now it actually has potential and possibility. So start with the positive. Second, 2 beautiful words, yes and. Comes out of improv comedy, improv theater, and it means something pretty straightforward, but it's really powerful. We're gonna build on an idea. Yes is an affirmation. Hey, what if you made a drinkable version of varenicline? Yes, I'm affirming it. Okay, I hear you, I'm accepting that premise. I'm not judging it, I'm just accepting it. And now invite somebody to build. And what if you can make it a coffee? And what if it was a partnership with Starbucks? And what if you could get it every corner store? It doesn't mean when you yes and something that you're going to now invest $100 million of private equity funding into that idea. It just means we're going to give it a little bit of airspace. We're going to give it a little bit of room to grow. The last one is another simple expression. And what if we? What if? So this comes from the work of this guy named Edward de Bono. He's considered the godfather of serious creativity and lateral thinking. And what he said is, our minds are trained to be more deductive. We're much more logical. We follow these vertical patterns. But if you want to break the normal patterns of thinking, if you want to get out of what he called your rivers of thinking, then you need to think more laterally. And lateral is literally jumping out of those normal vertical loops. And one way to do it is by asking, what if? It's an invitation to imagine. What if you could make a telescope the size of the Earth? Right? That's impossible. You can't do that. What if a 6-year-old can invent your next breakthrough technology in oncology? What if you put all of your research in the hands of a group of 6-year-olds? Now, that's a little wild. Or maybe not. Maybe not. What if invites us to do the impossible? So I'll leave you with this thought. You never know where the next 6-year-old is lurking with the next big idea. You never know. So what does that mean? That means we have to be open and receptive. There's a time to judge. Be assured of that. But there's also a time to be open and to allow innovation to flourish. And at the end of the day, the battle is won or lost up here in every single one of us. Thank you.